The fear of conflict. I love talking about this one. See, the thing is, on teams, conflict is a good thing. Conflict, even in meetings, it is. Conflict is a good thing. Now, I'm not talking about mean-spirited interpersonal conflict. I'm talking about productive, ideological conflict around issues. I have an idea, and what should we do? But see, without trust, without vulnerability-based trust, conflict becomes politics. I'm trying to manipulate you to win. But with trust, conflict is nothing but the pursuit of truth or the best possible answer. When we trust one another, we know that if we're debating something, even passionately, then we know it's because we're just trying to do the right thing. And that's a good thing. Now, before we go further, I want to say this. Conflict is going to look different from culture to culture, company to company, family to family, person to person, and that's okay. If anybody here done work in Japan, I'm sure there's somebody, show of hands. So if you've done work in Japan, you know, if you were to go to Japan and you were to sit at a table with a group of Japanese executives, and one of them were to say, I have an idea, this is what I think we should do, and the other executives didn't like his idea, what would they do? Yes, they would nod their head and they say, hi, yes, hi. That means I don't like your idea. Now, if they hated the idea, if they loathed the idea, you know what they would do? They'd go like this, hi, yes, hi. Hi, yes. They'd suck through their teeth. If you're in a meeting with a Japanese executive and he or she sucks through their teeth, well, I want you to picture an Italian doing a certain gesture with their arms, as we know that I won't do here in front of the cardinal. But it's the same thing. And you just have to understand that that's how they say, no way, I hate this in Japan. And it's going to look different in Italy and Israel and even in the United States. You might know something about the United States. I'll tell you this. I'm sure in Europe it happens too. But in the United States, I saw a cartoon years ago that depicted this. And it showed a guy on the West Coast in Los Angeles. And he was with a team and he said to somebody, good morning. But the bubble showed what he was really thinking. And in effect, it said, screw you. And then it showed a guy in New York City in the next frame. And he said to somebody, hey, screw you. And the bubble said, good morning. And you can apply that to your countries and continents, and I know you know what it means. The truth of the matter is, though, whether you're Italian and Irish like me with conflict, or whether you're demure about it, it doesn't matter. Whatever your team, you just have to have a team culture. And the key is this. You just have to know that people on your team are not holding back. They're not calculating the cost of disagreeing. They're not considering the political ramifications. If there's something important you're talking about and they disagree, they're going to say it again and again. Now, as I said, I'm Italian and Irish. My wife is neither. She never saw her parents argue growing up. But she's a convert, if you know what I mean. And you know how converts are. They're better at things than people born into them. So she has learned to argue so well. And after she and I got married, her little sister married my roommate. So my buddy became my brother-in-law, which was kind of nice. Except a year and a half later, they got divorced. Yeah, and he went to counseling after the divorce, and he came to me later and he said, you know something, Pat, I always thought that you and Laura, my wife, had a bad marriage because you guys argue. He said, now I realize that we had a bad marriage because we couldn't argue. Which, of course, is not to say that the quality of your marriage is directly proportionate to the number of fights you have. But what it is to say is great relationships are built on the ability to disagree, even passionately at times, and to know that you can recover from that, and it gets better. Remember, for those of you that are married, the first time you had a fight with your spouse, and you thought, oh, this is going to be the shortest marriage in the history of the world. And now later on, you can cycle through an argument 10 times worse in 5 minutes and be done. And it's a beautiful thing, and you realize because you trust each other, when you argue, you're usually just trying to solve a problem. And you forgive one another. And all teams have to learn how to do that. Conflict is necessary. Now, many leaders I talk to, many CEOs I work with will say, and by the way, most of them have very little conflict. There's far less conflict in almost every organization than there needs to be. And I'll say to them, why don't you engage in conflict more? They say, well, because I don't want to see people get their feelings hurt. Which is interesting and ironic, because you know what kind of organizations people get their feelings hurt in the worst? Of all the kind of organizations in society, where is there the worst kind of hurtful back channel conflict? You can say it all together. 1, 2, 3. Church. That's right. Now, I like to have fun with that when I'm working with a secular audience because I tell them that as well. And I say, and I work in my local church, and I've come to realize why churches have such bad conflict. It's because they hire mean people. And they're always like, really? Where do you go to church? I'm like, no, it's not that. In fact, it's the opposite. We go to church. I'm Catholic. We have a parish council meeting, which is a group of volunteers. And we'll sit down around a table to solve problems. And some very nice lady will say, I think we should have a festival of balloons next week or something. And I'm thinking, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I don't say that to her because I'm Christian. I say, oh, great idea. Thank you for that. Good. Okay. Anybody else? Great. Great meeting, everybody. Thank you. Then I go out in the parking lot with my friend and I say, I think she's an idiot, don't you? And at meeting after meeting we go to, we never disagree. We start to roll our eyes whenever she speaks. We sigh. And finally, one of her friends tells her that someone thinks she's an idiot. Now we've crushed her spirit. But at least we didn't disagree with her idea. Ladies and gentlemen, when we fail to disagree with people around ideas and issues, it ferments into conflict around them as a person. It builds up and it comes out in a hurtful way. When we think we're preserving the relationship by not disagreeing, we are actually dooming that relationship to failure in a hurtful way later. We owe it to one another to disagree.